Trade alert, trade alert, trade alert. We interrupt your regularly scheduled podcast for some trade alerts. Welcome back to Drafts with Jordan and Josh. I am one of your hosts, Mr. Jordan Blocker. With me, as always, Mr. Josh Liskowitz. And, Josh, there's so many trades.
There are. On Halloween. It was crazy.
It was crazy. All right.
Stuff happened.
We have to go right into this, right? I mean,
yes.
We'll get to trick-or-treating in a second, but yeah, I mean, okay, there had been some deals before, but the pressing ones are the ones that just came out just recently. Those ones are like fresh in our brains, and we're going to start there, Josh, and then we'll work our way back. We got to start, Josh. Patriots send backup quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo to the 49ers for their second-round pick in this draft coming up. And, wow, that just totally throws, a wrench into everything. It's sort of a scenario that we had addressed on the last pod, but we had addressed the 49ers possibly getting that quarterback through free agency via Kirk Cousins or something like that. But, Josh, man, we didn't see this one coming.
No, we definitely didn't, especially because of the free agent quarterbacks coming available. I mean, obviously, like as you mentioned, Cousins, there's all those ties there. We talked about it last week when we talked about San Francisco. That was kind of what we figured. I mean, certainly there's huge draft implications, and that goes in line with what we talked about last week in terms of at the top of the draft, what do they do? Because if quarterback's off the table, draft doesn't really fit up with their needs. I mean, we'll get in later with Steve's first mock draft as to who he had there, and that kind of goes in line with what we said last week. But interesting there, and I'm interested to see how he looks this year and how that sets up contract, because they're going to have to negotiate a contract with him. And in fact, Shanahan already came out this afternoon, I don't know if you even saw this, but said there's no guarantee that he even plays this year, which is kind of silly. But at the same time, it's a weird feeling out process, because with Garoppolo, it's clear teams liked him, even though there's such a small sample size. But you don't know what he's going to get in the offseason in terms of a contract. Was it going to get a Brock Osweiler deal somewhere? I mean, and even Osweiler, we had a lot bigger body of work with him. Now we're in a situation where he goes to a terrible team that he's probably not going to really be very successful with there. Let's be honest, and to no fault of his own, certainly this year. You have to give him a pass. But does that affect what kind of contract, and does that work into San Fran's favor? Are they able to get him a little bit cheaper? I don't know. It's a really interesting, unique situation with a lot of levels to it.
Yeah, as far as getting him cheaper, I'm not sure. I mean, the one thing they did do is make sure they got him, so that way he didn't even really reach that free agency frenzy. But yeah, when we go back and we look at the player, that we liked the coming out, or the traits that we liked about him coming out, a decent enough, foot quickness, foot athlete to be, the quarterback in that system. But the thing that always stood out to me, I always really liked was I thought he had kind of a bit of a lightning quick release.
Yeah.
And so I think he can really fit their system. But like you said, Josh, I mean, our sample size is really small here. I mean, and he didn't. It's not like he was able to stay healthy for longer than I think a game or I don't know, a game and a half or something like that. So yeah, it's a really interesting situation.
Well, one quick thought in terms of him with a new contract. It's not like they're spending money elsewhere. They could just tag him, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they tag him for next year, let him play into the contract, because let's get one thing straight. A second-round pick doesn't preclude them from addressing the position elsewhere or in the short or long term.
Right, and they still have another second-round pick.
Yeah, they still have another second-round pick. They have 2 or 3 third-round. So, I mean, they could still draft a guy on day 2 this year. None of that goes out the window with this situation. So I don't think people should be so quick to act like, oh, they got their guy, that's it. I don't think that's necessarily the situation. And judging by his comments, I don't think they're totally viewing it that way as well.
Now, see, for me, and people have, taken issue with this with me before in the past, but my personal philosophy is quarterback's the most important position in sports. So hedge your bets. We don't know if Jimmy's going to be the guy, so take another guy, high in the draft. It just sort of doubles your chances of getting one of them right. And so a lot of people think, oh no, you should spend that pick on supporting Jimmy just so that way, if he's the guy, he's got more help. I'm like, well, we still don't know if he is the guy. Let's double our chance at even finding the guy by getting another guy high. But I don't know if that's exactly what they would do, but I would be, that would be the strategy I would be trying to go for, I think.
We talked about this in the summer, I'm pretty sure, but my strategy would be to draft a quarterback every year, regardless of whether I have a starter or not. And New England is case in point of that. They flipped Matt Castle for a second-round pick. They now flipped Jimmy for a pick. What about Brissett? Did they get something from Indy for Brissett, or was he just a free agent?
No, I think they got something, but I don't really recall. But
I don't remember what they got in that, but. I mean, obviously they had a guy. They have the best guy of all time there, but they kept drafting quarterbacks, drafted him fairly high. And now they've just flipped a guy who had about 100 throws for them for what's essentially a late first-round pick, let's be honest. It's going to be picked like 30, 33, 34, 35.
Right.
So they have, a second first-round pick, essentially, one that's very powerful, really is a better pick than number 32 overall, because if it's number 33, that is the most powerful pick in the draft after the number 1 overall pick, because the whole board resets at the start of day 2, and whoever has that first pick,
right,
they're going to have people trying to go up there and get it, and they're going to be able to do more damage with that.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, going on that point, you get those GMs and they get sort of itchy trinker fingers when they get home at night, and they're like, "Oh, my guy's sitting right there, right at the top. Ooh, yeah,
gotta get him.
Gotta go get him." So it's interesting. But the thing that I think that really changes the most about the draft, because they're clearly not going to take a quarterback with that first round pick now. Okay, so we know that's off the table now.
Yes. Right.
So yeah, I think they still could go later, but they're not going to go quarterback. That sort of frees them up. But again, it sort of brings in these other issues with, where do you go if you're the Niners? They've invested heavily on their defensive line, so maybe they're not going to take a defensive lineman high in the draft. A lot of people point their finger, and you're going to hear this from people all over the media landscape that, they're just going to take Saquon Barkley because, he's the best offensive player, and that makes sense theoretically, but again, historically, it doesn't make sense in the way that they've gone about building their teams. So, I can't.
Not Shanahan.
Not Shanahan. So again, in this day and age, when you have to find an area to scrimp and to save, that's where they've scrimped and saved, is in the running back position.
Right.
And that's how they build a roster. And so again, for them to dedicate that amount of resources to where they would normally save, I just don't see happening.
No, I know. And obviously this is from last week's podcast too, so any 49ers fans listening didn't get a listen on this one. Last week we not only went over draft prospects for the first 3 rounds for your team, but we also had David Newman, one of our resident 49ers experts with PFF, and we talked about the structure of the roster, which obviously has changed at this point. But as far as that first round pick, to me, there's really 3 possibilities right now. They go a straight explosive edge guy, which they don't have right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess you can kind of say Aaron Lynch, but he's not producing. But they don't have that explosive edge guy. They have Solomon Thomas, a tweener, playing on the edge right now, which just is not where he belongs at all. So they could go there. They could certainly take the safety from Florida State. We'll talk more about him later. Or they could trade down. I think that's really optimal for them at this point.
Right.
Because they can't really like where they sit.
Yeah.
But it's not like they're going to take Maurice Hurst there. They've just spent 3 straight picks on that position. So
yeah, I mean,
they're going to do it a 4th year in a row.
I think that you're right. I think now this Jimmy Garoppolo trade makes the 49ers one of the premier trade back candidates in the draft, because for the quarterback needy teams who maybe want to try to get up there high, they're going to want this pick, and the Niners are just going to be like, we just, we'll go ahead and move back a little bit, acquire another pick, and then maybe pick up some areas where we don't want to spend the draft capital there right now.
Yeah.
But so that's going to be interesting to see. And honestly, I don't think that the number 33 pick that goes to New England is going to even stay with New England, as you mentioned.
There's no way it will.
Yeah,
there's no way it will. Look, well, let's put it this way. Maybe that one does, but whatever their first round pick won't. There's no way they will keep both those picks.
Right.
Whether it's pick 32, 22, it doesn't matter. There's no way they're going to keep both those picks. One of those will go as a result of this deal.
So let's move on to another big trade here, Josh. The Panthers sent wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin to the Bills for 2018 third and seventh round picks. Again, some of the guys who were in the front office when Benjamin was drafted in Carolina, I guess, are now in the front office in Buffalo. But it just seems sort of a weird scheme fit or talent fit in some ways to me to have Benjamin up there. What do you think, Josh?
I think more than anything else, it signals that all those rumblings we've heard about them not being sold on Tyrod, I think it says they're true. And the reason is this. And the reason is because, as you said, those are Benjamin's people. Benjamin's people drafted him. They're in Buffalo now, and now they went and traded for him. Not that you want to structure your entire roster around him, but here's Benjamin's game, and a game that the regime loves. He is not a guy that's able to separate. He has to win contested balls. Well, if you look at Tyrod historically, and I wish in preparation I'd gotten our numbers, because we've put out some numbers at PFF on Twitter. Tyrod doesn't throw contested balls. He just doesn't throw to cover guys. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really fit him at all. And so I wonder if they're more likely to let a Tyrod walk, maybe pursue Kirk Cousins. Obviously, he's on the table now. We're going to talk about all the different trades, but that's certainly one of the biggest things that's going to affect the draft is where does Cousins end up now? Because obviously it's no longer a foregone conclusion. He goes to San Fran.
Aren't they also really high on Peterman, the rookie?
Yeah, that's true. They have Peterman as well. So maybe, they're happy to go that route next year as well. But that's certainly part of this deal is their quarterback situation. And it puts Tyrod potentially on the market elsewhere as well. So I think that to me is the most interesting part of it from Buffalo's perspective. And I have to say, I like the fact that Buffalo hasn't been afraid to acknowledge that, hey, we're probably not going to win based on the roster we have now. They know they're not going to remain competitive in that division, especially with New England there. But you got other teams like Detroit, for instance. Detroit has Ezekiel Ansah. Contract is up. He's underperformed really for the last 3 years, especially the last two. I don't know how you pay that guy big bucks. But his contract's up, and they didn't trade him, and so now they're going to rely on a compensatory pick in 2019. Eric Ebron, his name was the hot name this weekend. They were supposed to trade. I cannot imagine anyone thinks they're going to be keeping him this year, but they didn't trade him. So they're going to end up relying on some compensatory pick, which probably won't be better than a fifth, because it's not like he's going to command a high dollar amount in 2 years from now, in the 2019 draft. That's why I like what Buffalo's doing. They're acknowledging that we need to build for the future there. So while Benjamin's the one that they brought in, they've obviously jettisoned quite a few others, especially on the eve of the season. I think it's still more so with the future in mind than the present that they made this deal.
And then the Bills sending, the two draft picks to Carolina, so Carolina can maybe, start building the roster and the new front offices.
Yeah.
Image, got to like having more picks for that. So, yeah. I mean, it's got to impact the draft from the Panther perspective. Also, like, they had to. You think they're going to be taking another wide receiver at some point, or do they just sort of use McCaffrey more at wide receiver now? Or what do you think that does?
Yeah, well, I think we're going to see more McCaffrey, possibly at wide receiver. We definitely need to be seeing more Curtis Samuel. Yeah. I think we're definitely going to see more of him. But I think ultimately it's going to be these last 8 games or however, I don't know if they have 8 or 9 left. But these last few games for them, the second half of the year, is going to be show me time for Devin Funchess. He needs to show them, can he be the guy, the X for them? Because they will have to address otherwise if they determine, no, he's really just a number 2. He can't be the guy, because they're going to need that guy with all those other small body slot types that they have, which are fine. I think they're perfectly capable of structuring a solid offense around that. But if Funchess can't step into that role as being that full-time X, then they're going to have to think about it in the draft for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, possibly, I mean, not necessarily the first round, but yeah, maybe taking a bigger wide receiver, or maybe like a Calvin Ridley, or, you know, again, like later on in the draft, someone like a Jaleel Scott or something, you know, again, like
Alan Lazard.
Yeah, right. There's going to be a bunch of these types of guys, I think. So yeah, I think they'd probably fill it without necessarily having to go first round to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
all right,
but it's certainly on the forefront now at a position that you wouldn't have thought of before yesterday.
All right, let's move on to another trade here, Josh. The Dolphins sent running back Ajayi to the Eagles in exchange for a fourth-round pick. These GMs love working with each other. They're probably like, I don't know if they talk to each other every day, but man, they get a lot of deals done together. I know Howie Roseman's a big fan of getting trades done. He thinks it's good for both teams and good for the league. I agree. But this one's going to, have some draft impact on the Eagles and the Dolphins as far as like, these rosters. Because I mean, Ajayi was really productive for Miami, Josh. So like, how do you just fill that again?
Yeah, there's no question that this certainly puts running back on the table for Miami. I mean, Miami's got a number of things on the table, starting off with quarterback, obviously, but. Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to figure out running back position. But the running back, I wouldn't be so worried about that. There's so many different ways to get that. I mean, it's not like, what was Ajayi to them? Like, was he a fourth-round pick for them, a sixth-round pick for them? I mean, he wasn't a high.
He was a day three guy, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost certain he was a day three guy. So they could certainly go that route again, and there's going to be guys for that. It's a reasonable class coming up, but certainly I would assume you're going to see them drafting one, unless one of the two guys on the roster currently, Drake or Williams, just goes off, and I don't see that happening. Especially not behind that line.
But for the Eagles, this has to take running back off, right? It has to take running back off the list for high picks.
I will say that with a caveat, and certainly when you look at that roster, in the last few weeks we've been doing our thing where we take a look at what the biggest weakness is on a roster and how to fix it with the draft pick. Well, certainly running back would have been one of those issues for Philly. They got this weird revolving door. Blount's been okay at times. They have Wendell Smallwood. He's not really a guy. They drafted the Munchkin from San Diego State that we liked so much, and he didn't even make the roster. So they got this weird collection of guys, and none of them are clearly the guy. So they're bringing Ajayi in. The one caveat that could bring that back into play is my suspicion of why Miami was willing to let him go, and that could be long-term health. I worry about him in general. He's had issues staying healthy. That knee hasn't been consistent for him. And just his running style. I mean, he's an upright, physical guy. Well, upright, physical running backs get hurt. Mm-hmm. So if he gets hurt down the stretch, I think that puts running back right back on the table. And let's not pretend like a fourth-round pick is a huge deal in terms of what they're concerned. I mean, they're obviously a team right now competing for a Super Bowl.
Well, I got to tell you,
they're trying to find that last missing piece. But I don't think that necessarily means they won't address it if he's not what they need him to be for this year.
There's still going to be like super talented running backs on day three, and so the guy that comes to my mind, just because he's my favorite prospect at all overall, is Philip Lindsay from Colorado. Again, like you had mentioned the Donnell Pumphrey, so he's sort of in that role, a little bit bigger, and a little bit like more physically punishing runner, but he's still small. But again, like he would fit that. He's going to be He's a day three running back I would want to draft, but that's just my own personal bias.
And I would go with James Butler, who looks like he's getting back on the field finally for Iowa. Yeah. He's starting to get back there. He was just monstrous production last year at Nevada. And again, we're talking about a team that obviously is structured around that quarterback. They don't need someone to carry the ball 20 times. They don't need Ajayi. They didn't bring Ajayi in to save the day to carry 25 times, Right. So it's not like Minnesota would have been a situation where had Minnesota been the one who's trading for him. Obviously, they've gotten good production out of their backs since their league guy went down. But let's say that a team like Minnesota did. They're structured to win if they get a consistent offense. They would have been pounding the ball
Right.
with Ajayi 20, 25 times a game. That's not going to be the case in Philly. They don't need him to do that.
Yeah, I mean, everything there is going to run through Wentz now. But at some point, I guess it would make sense for them to get like a really young, really talented back. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably going to be running more so through Wentz in the pass game.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go to the next big trade to discuss, and that's the Houston Texans sent tackle Duane Brown and a fifth-round pick to the Seahawks, and the Seahawks sent a third and a pick next year and a second-round pick, I think, in 2019. So, the Texans just going to get some good picks in the back end here, but man, that really changes the makeup of the Seahawks offensive line in a hurry. I mean, like, I know Seahawks fans on Twitter that were telling me that they were screaming in public when they found out that they got Duane Brown. So I got to think that that's going to change a lot for them, Josh. They took a lineman early this past draft, but I would think that they're not necessarily going to go tackle anytime early. So it's definitely going to impact them in that aspect. And then again, for the Texans, are just getting some more ammo. If GM Rick Smith continues to be there, we'll see. If not, then this pick helped them sort of recoup some of the picks that they've lost over like the Brock Osweiler thing and some other things. So again, Josh, how do you see this impacting the Seahawks with adding a piece like Duane Brown?
Well, I think first and foremost, and this probably has to make fans the happiest, is this is the first. It's been obvious the last 3-4 years that this is the Achilles heel for Seattle. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I guess you could say they've tried to address it in the draft, but they've addressed it with some guys out of left field that we knew were probably going to struggle and going to have some issues. This is the first time that they've addressed it aggressively with someone who's either a proven commodity or a legit blue chip guy. Mm-hmm. Sorry for the Germain Ifedi fan club, but he was never should have been a first round pick, and I think he's proven that so far.
No, I agree. I hear what you're saying. You got Duane Brown, and now he's a polished and productive and proven player.
Yep. Yeah, and one of the issues that they've had too this year, obviously, they have no run game. And you need to be able to run block. And while I don't think you're ever going to get peak Duane Brown anymore, especially after he's had a myriad of injuries the last few years, you can't help but get a huge upgrade in terms of run blocking when you get Duane Brown, because that's what he was. He was for a 2-3 year period in his prime about 3-4 years ago. He was the best run blocking left tackle in the game. He was.
Yeah. So
you got to think that helps them a little bit. Who knows what to do with the running back behind him, what that's going to look like, but that's another story. That has to help them in that regard. And obviously it's big for Russell Wilson. To me, this solidifies them as probably the number one seed in the NFC. And part of that is probably the division. I mean, LA is certainly formidable and took them to the limit in LA a couple of weeks ago. But those other two teams are obviously very weak. You've got some good teams out west, but Philly's got Dallas. I think they're going to be competitive regardless of if they have Elliott or not. And obviously all the teams in the South, you got a couple of interesting teams there that are just going to beat each other up. I don't think that they're going to be able to keep pace with Seattle, even though Seattle has a reasonably tough schedule coming up. So I think that sets them up very well going into the playoffs to get home field advantage throughout. And if that team gets home field advantage throughout in that stadium, that's going to be a problem for everyone else.
That's the truth. I've been in the games there. It's quite loud. Yeah, especially that late in the season. Yeah, that would be a formidable home field advantage. One of the better ones in the league. Definitely one of the better ones in the NFC. All right, so let's go to another pick that really sort of upgraded a line, and that's the Bills sent defensive tackle Marcell Dareus to the Jaguars for a 6th-round pick. Mm-hmm. Now the Jaguars already have a pretty loaded defensive line, especially with the free agent addition of Calais Campbell over the offseason. But now that you're adding Marcell Dareus in the middle there, Josh, it's disgusting.
Yeah, you can't pass on them at all because they have the best cornerback duo in the league, even though both of them are so young.
Right.
So you can't do anything in terms of passing, and teams have been able to run them a little bit. Well, that just stopped. You're not going to be able to do that anymore. It's really amazing the amount of talent that they have stocked up on the offense or on the defense, and certainly draft wise, I cannot envision them spending an early pick on the defense. It doesn't make any sense at all for them to do that, even if best available guy is, because they're not going to be able to get that guy snaps because they're so good, so deep, really at every position on that defense. They have to go offense. And obviously they have significant holes at a wide number of positions there. But I think that really makes their draft strategy very, very clear.
I wonder if they're going to go. Well, I mean, I thought they were going to do it last year, but I wonder if they're going to address, quarterback situation high in the draft again. I mean, one of the theories.
What if they go for Tyrod? What if they go for Tyrod? Or I don't think he's going to be super expensive. I mean, and because of the way they spent free agency, they've been spending a lot for a while. While a reasonable quarterback for them probably puts them in Super Bowl contention because that defense is so good, so talented, and now they've got a run game even though they don't have. I mean, that's sort of relative, but still, even without a great offensive line, they're able to manufacture a run game that's letting them win games right now. A quarterback like Tyrod, that could really put them over the top. So maybe they go that route and say, no, we're ready to win now. Let's go get the quarterback, and then we'll address offensive line, tight end, some other issues they have on that offense in the draft at the top of the draft.
I remember one of the popular theories in the PFF office on draft day, or one of the things that we would like to have seen, was the Jaguars selecting Deshaun Watson at number 4. Instead of a Leonard Fournette. And not to take anything away from Leonard Fournette, but if the Jaguars had selected Watson, again, I think that just would have helped them figure out which quarterback was the right quarterback for them, if they wanted to keep going with Bortles or if Watson would have beat him out. Either way, they would have got improved quarterback play. But they went the a different route and got Fournette. But I'd have to think that they would be in play for a quarterback high, especially if they don't add like a Tyrod in free agency. But I'm thinking now that you mentioned it, I think they probably have to be a decent free agency player in the quarterback area.
Cousins is going to cost a bunch, and I don't know if they'll. I got to think their cap situation isn't going to look that great anymore. I mean, obviously they were able to amass a lot of big price free agents because they had so much room. But at some point, that money's going to run out, and they're not going to be able to continue to just pile that on. So without being fully educated on that, I got to think Cousins will be tough. But Tyrod, to me, that just seems like a real option. And kind of like we talked about with San Fran, that doesn't mean that they can't draft a quarterback in day 2 and do exactly what you just suggested.
Yeah.
They pretty much know by now Bortles isn't going to be the guy going forward there. But they bring in Tyrod, draft a guy in round 2, maybe a Mike White type, and, develop him. I think they're sitting pretty well. But that team has not had a winner in a very long time, obviously. And to me, they're that quarterback position away from being true contenders now. And I think this is the final opportunity. If they can make the money work, whether it's Cousins, Tyrod, they got to go after that free agent.
All right. And, we just wanted to run you guys through all these trade scenarios that happened and how they're going to impact the NFL draft. And so now I know that was a lot, Josh.
I need a cigarette.
I know. All right. Let's now move on to our Rookie of the Year watch list. Looking at ProFootballFocus.com, the Billy Moy, the world famous and multi-talented Billy Moy, is keeping track of the Rookie of the Year rankings, Josh, and nothing has changed in the top 3 spots in Billy's rankings. We still have Marshawn Lattimore, the corner for the Saints, at number 1 at 94.5 overall grade. We have Kareem Hunt, your boy from the Kansas City Chiefs, PFF grade of 91.4. We We have Tre'Davious White, the corner for the Bills, holding strong there at number 3, the PFF grade.
Also my boy.
Of 88.9. We have, someone moved up into the number 4 spot now. That's a little different now. That's Deshaun Watson, a quarterback from the Texans. PFF grade is 75.1. So, Josh, what's standing out about Watson?
The fact that nothing is too big for him, which I guess considering what he went through at Clemson, going to back-to-back national title games, beating Alabama on the last play of the game like he did in one of the all-time great games of any level. Nothing is too big for him, which is probably the single best thing you could say about a young quarterback. But going into Seattle, performing like he did, going tit for tat with Russell Wilson, not being afraid
in that environment
to challenge some of those top elite playmakers. I mean, yeah, he made his mistakes. We knew he would, and he's going to going forward. But he's not scared, Jordan. He's not scared, and it's obviously very exciting football, and it's such a shame that they had the injuries they've had on defense, because with him, even as a rookie, with him playing at the level he's at, if they were fully staffed on that defense, I mean, they'd be as tough as anybody right now. I think that would have been the difference this past week if they had those guys on defense. I do.
Nice. Well, hopefully Watson continues at this level of play. It's impressive. It's good for the league.
Yeah.
When we get these.
It's great for the league.
Yeah, when we get young quarterbacks who come in and play.
Oh, yeah.
So number 5 on the list, just moved down a notch here, is Aaron Jones, running back from Green Bay Packers, PFF grade of 86.7.
How dare you have a bye week? Come on, Aaron.
Seriously. But you got to imagine he's going to be getting the ball quite a bit moving forward there. So, what's standing out from him is from a statistical standpoint, Josh?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm writing a piece today for The Athletic Detroit, our good friends at The Athletic, and those two teams play each other. Green Bay and Detroit play each other Monday night this week. So that's going to be one of the interesting things is how's the run game used, especially with Brett Hundley at quarterback in Green Bay. Obviously, Aaron Jones had a huge day against New Orleans, but one of the interesting things to me about that game was the fact that even though they had Brett Hundley in, their split was still very, very heavy on pass, even though the game scripts had Green Bay up almost the entire game. I mean, they weren't down two possessions until less than 5 minutes to go in the game, and they were ahead until the fourth quarter. But they still passed. They had 33 pass drops and 22 runs. So I'm interested to see if that remains the same, or now that suddenly they found, okay, we might have a back that can do some things on a more consistent basis, that they do go heavier run with some limitations at quarterback. I'm interested to see how that pans out. This might be a rough week to see that because Detroit's been really solid in terms of their run defense. But I just have a feeling at some point Aaron Jones, if he's going to be the guy over Montgomery there in terms of getting the running carries, he's going to be getting quite a bit more than he has been because of that situation at quarterback.
All right, normally we stop at the number 5, but we
got to go to 6.
We got to go to 6 this week, because this is just a fun, interesting addition. It's a player that you and I both really liked coming into the draft, and that's Desmond King, the corner out of Iowa, who's now a Los Angeles Charger, PFF grade of 84.1. Josh, what's King doing for the Chargers?
He's making plays. That's what he does. That's what he did at Iowa. Don't care about his size, his perceived lack of speed. If you put him in positions to succeed, namely not putting him in man coverage all over the field, he's going to succeed because he's just that kind of instinctual player. And I think LA has done a great job of that. And that defense has really turned things around. Certainly he's helped by that front. There's not a better duo in terms of pass rushers than what the Chargers have.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, he's playing very well. They got multiple guys obviously in that secondary playing well. That's a young, exciting defense, and he's certainly been a big part of that so far.
Yeah, I mean, every time I catch glimpses of the Chargers here and there for work, he's always making a play. He's making a special teams tackle or making a play on defense. So yeah, he really impressed with him. So we had to mention him there, creeping up to number 6. All right, that'll do it for our little rookie watch list here. Josh, the biggest news in the whole draft world this week wasn't necessarily all those trades. The biggest news,
the entire football world.
The biggest news in the entire football world this week, Josh, wasn't the NFL trade deadline. It was Steve Palazzolo's first NFL mock draft.
Yes.
So that is now up on ProFootballFocus.com, and everyone should go check it out. Because, again, this is what the whole industry is abuzz, Josh. The whole industry is abuzz. And I got to tell you,
everybody wants to know, Jordan, is this the worst mock draft ever? And we're going to tell you.
It is. Man,
of course it is.
First of all, it's the worst mock draft ever, and then second of all, Josh, I can't believe this order. I mean, you always got to start with the order. This is the worst order of any mock draft.
I know.
Ever. How did we get to
Cleveland Browns picking number 1 overall?
Ridiculous.
Come on,
ridiculous. How did we get in this order, Josh?
That's Vegas's fault.
Is this Vegas odds?
Yeah, I told Steve to pick Vegas odds.
Okay.
Very simple. So that you can give Steve a pass too. I mean, there's no good way to do it right now. We're halfway through the year, so go to Vegas.
And let's be honest. I mean, the fun of a mock draft is just seeing where your team took a player, not where your team picked. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the fun part of it.
I know.
Let it go, people. Let it go.
Yeah, people always treat it as it's a mock draft for college players. Everyone looks at it as like a prediction for the whole season. Come on, we'll have different articles for that you can get.
Seriously,
that could be the worst season prediction ever. Let this be the worst mock ever. Okay.
Mock drafts basically are like draft fan fiction. Okay, so settle down, everybody.
Yes.
All right, so the number 1 pick in this draft was quarterback Baker Mayfield from Oklahoma going to Cleveland. So we know Cleveland needs a quarterback, and this guy Josh is just killing our grading system right now.
Yeah, he is. He's destroying all of it. To me, at this point with Baker Mayfield, thinking about him to the next level, thinking about what we don't like about him, how we don't think that translates to the next level, but his ridiculous production every single week at the college level, just absolutely dominating. I think we're at the point where, we say this about guys that maybe play tackle in college, and we think they could play there, but they might be better maybe at right tackle or at guard. Let them fail at tackle first. Let's let Baker Mayfield fail with his goofy mechanics and his quirkiness in his game first before we try and rebuild him. Let's let him do his thing, see how that works at the NFL level, instead of reinventing the wheel on him, because it's working. And I know it's just the college level, but it's working. And we've seen when you look at like a Deshaun Watson, obviously, when you let him do what he was successful at in college, he's successful at the NFL level at it. So let's let Baker Mayfield be Baker Mayfield first before we make him an NFL quarterback.
Let Baker be Baker. Free Baker Mayfield, everybody. Quit trying to harass this man. I agree with you, Josh. I mean, to be, if you're going to take a player who is sort of unorthodox in this aspect, it makes sense to sort of just let them, go be them and see if it works. Again, his college production right now is ridiculous and amazing, and it merits him being on this list.
Let's look at Tebow. I mean, Tebow was so marginal in every aspect, but when was Tebow somehow effective in the NFL? When he was doing crazy Tebow stuff, not when he was trying to drop back and fix his mechanics and all that stuff. That didn't work. And I'm not saying Baker Mayfield's Tebow. I mean, even for all the terrible, horrible things you said about him all summer, I know you think more highly of him than you thought of Tebow coming out. But
oh yeah.
But I just think you can't just think you can reinvent the wheel with him, because I think you're asking for failure if you do that.
All right, let's move past the quarterback, Josh, and we'll go to the number 2 pick here. That was the San Francisco 49ers. And, after trading for Jimmy, that need is gone. So Steve gave them safety Derwin James from Florida State, a player that we've sort of assigned to them in the last time that we talked on the pod.
Yeah.
I got to think this is a good pick.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about him earlier in the podcast as well. Obviously, they go edge, they go Derwin, or they trade. That's it.
Right.
And I got a chance to watch Derwin James this past weekend, and a very embarrassing display by Florida State, getting just completely manhandled by Boston College. But I will say that Derwin James was excellent. Didn't have to play much in coverage, but certainly in the box as a defender, he just – You'd have no idea he's a safety when he's in there. He's just a grown-ass man who's probably still 19 years old right now. I guess maybe he's 20. But, I mean, he's just fantastic at what he does, and what he does is everything. So I think it's a no-brainer for them at this point if they're stuck with that pick.
I agree. All right, number 3, we have the Indianapolis Colts, and we have them taking the best non-quarterback offensive player in the draft, and that would be running back Saquon Barkley from Penn State. And again, I don't think the Niners would take him, Josh. I mean, I imagine he'll be in play, and imagine a lot of mock drafts will see him there, but I don't see it there. So this to me is I think it's a good fit.
It's such a great fit. It's really a perfect fit. They're going to have to get Andrew Luck, assuming he's able to come back. They're going to have to get him some help on a number of levels. I think it might surprise people that they have figured some things out on offense, but I mean, outside of Ty and their tight end, they definitely don't have a running game, even though I think offensive line play in general has improved. But all the different things Barkley can do for you when you have a quarterback like Andrew Luck, I just think he's a special fit there. He'll certainly help in the passing game with his abilities there, and he'll be used heavily in that regard. And obviously, he can help in the run game as well. I think that would be a dynamite pick for them, even though we're not normally this high on a running back this high in the draft.
Well, now in this part of Steve's mock, the quarterback run starts, and the quarterback run is going to start. People I know that some people are coming out saying, "Oh, we told you this quarterback class wouldn't be as good." Just wait, because there's
that was
still
me,
be,
by the way.
there's still going to be a bunch of them that get drafted, in early. So despite what people are saying about the class now, trust me, once we actually get to the point where the picks are actually getting written down on cards and submitted, there's going to be a lot more quarterbacks coming than you think. So the run starts here with the New York Giants selecting Sam Darnold,
But they have Eli.
How old is Eli now? I think he's 93 years old. He's 93
only
years
25.
old. Josh, he's 93 years old.
He's going on 25.
He's on his fifth back surgery. I'm just making all that up. But, anyways, Eli's old, Josh. They got to get some young blood in there. Sam's young.
Eli's old, and he hasn't been good for 4 or 5 years. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, he had a nice, decent run. Obviously, I don't think even their last Super Bowl he was as fantastic as people made him out to be. But obviously, 2012, they won the Super Bowl. Okay. He has not been good since then. There's never at any point that you can look and say, yeah, their failures are just because of the rest of the supporting cast. That's not the case. Obviously, there's a lot going on there right now in terms of all his entire receiving core going down, just about the top player on the entire team going down, and now you've got a contract issue with him as well. But they have to find a quarterback for the future, because regardless of what the fans think about Eli Manning, they need to find a replacement for him, short-term, long-term, all the above. And so I think you could see him taking a gamble on a guy like Sam Darnold here.
All right, the next pick here goes to number 5, the New York Jets. And Steve has them taking quarterback Lamar Jackson from Wool. And again, the Jets are a team who need a quarterback. They're in a great spot to get one. They invested heavily in defense last year early in the draft. Josh, I got to think they're going to be going quarterback.
Yeah, I think this would be a fan favorite pick, to be honest. Just
He'd be
obviously,
awesome in New York.
oh, he'd be perfect for that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because he's such a
Yeah.
big star and makes all these big plays. Like he would be great in
Yeah.
New York.
Yep. Well, even his style. I mean, he's got a huge cannon of an arm. He sprays it all over the field at times and doesn't make great reads. But that weather, that wind, that's not going to be an issue for him. It's just a matter of him figuring the rest of the game out and getting, becoming a more accurate passer. They better use his feet. That better be an intrinsic part of that game plan with him, because it should be, because he's spectacular when he's on his feet. It's really, we haven't seen a guy with his running ability since Michael Vick. There's no other comp, no other way to put it. But I think he would not just bring a lot of excitement, but there's a lot of real optimism with him, even though he's not a polished, ready-to-go passer.
Speaking of polished, ready-to-go passers, the next pick here, the Arizona Cardinals take quarterback Josh Rosen from UCLA. This, to me, would be a great fit. I would think it'd have to be the quarterback that the Cardinals would probably be the most interested in, again, from like a mechanical and fundamental standpoint, because Rosen's base is so solid, his mechanics are so solid, that Bruce Arians wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel with him. And they could probably get him on the field pretty quickly if he could sit behind Palmer a year or two. Josh, I think this is a great pick by Steve. Don't tell Steve.
I will not, but I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's a perfect match. I think you have to play him right away. I don't understand the idea of continuing to put Carson out there until he gets hurt. I think you got to play him right away, and this roster has pieces. If things are going right, obviously they were thrown for a loop when Week 1 David Johnson went down. That was a killer,
right?
Because he's as good a skill player as there is in the entire league. So getting him back is one thing, and then getting a young quarterback that fits that system, that's not going to take long to get in and get up and get ready to go for it. Yes, he has his flaws. There's no question about that. We've highlighted that. He continues to, make questionable decisions. You're going to get that. But you got to live with that with a young quarterback and with a quarterback his style. But I think the fit is absolutely perfect. And again, I think they're in a situation where you get someone like him that you can implant right away, shore up a couple other key positions, find something to help the void that was Calais Campbell that left this past year, and I think they can make waves again like they did 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think it'll take too much for them again, and that would be the big piece.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the number 7 pick here, Josh. It's the Baltimore Ravens, and we had discussed, you and I looked at it a couple weeks ago. We discussed the sort of offline their 3-year draft capital and where they've been spending their picks, and a lot of the high picks have gone on defense. So we could really see them going with like a offensive skill player or wide receiver. So Josh, we have wide receiver James Washington from Oklahoma State here.
Yeah, I think this is kind of the right spot in the draft for a guy like Washington. I mean, there's no question. 464 deep pass receiving yards. That's highest in all of FBS. And deep passes, of course, are passes that travel at least 20 yards through the air. I mean, they don't have that right now. I talked about this. I was asked about, or was I asked? No. On my Facebook chat with the PFF Elite group. That's one of the features of PFF Elite, is that you get part of the Facebook Elite group, and there's a lot of really good chats about fantasy in there, and the experts come on once a week, and we'll talk about a topic. And what I've been doing is kind of an extension of my series I started on this podcast, talking about particular needs that a team has and what are some draft fits. Well, Baltimore needs some receivers, and this was said last week after that mess of a Thursday night game between them and Miami, that it was still apparent that Baltimore's offense is a mess. They need that deep ball that Joe Flacco can underthrow to. They need that guy that can go get that pass interference penalty, and that's James Washington. I think he's a perfect fit for what they've been successful at in the past that they're lacking now.
All right, the next pick here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers picking number 8. And we have them select. Steve has them taking Maurice Hurst, a defensive tackle from Michigan. And this guy has just been absolutely destroying the country. He's a top 10 pick, Josh. So this is a great fit for Tampa to get an interior defender like this.
Yeah, you know why we have to make America great again? Because Maurice Hurst has been destroying the country, like you said. That's why.
Isn't he like our top graded defensive player?
He's the number 2 overall graded player in the entire country, behind our number 1 pick in this mock draft.
He's a top 10 pick all day.
Yeah, I don't know how you can look at him and not think he's a top 10 pick. Let me put it this way, and I know those exist out there. If you're a big mock draft fan and you end up seeing some mock draft now that does not have Maurice Hurst in the first round, let alone top 10, I can guarantee you whoever wrote that mock is A, not watching film, B, just puts their mock together from things they've heard from other people and is probably talking to an agent that doesn't have a chance at Maurice Hurst, so isn't talking about him. That's plain and simple. I don't know how you can watch him and think he's anything other than that. And the thing I love about this pick, the Tampa, is my comp for him since last summer has been Gerald McCoy. His explosiveness off the ball, his ability to just consistently disrupt the backfield, both as a pass rusher and a run defender. Doesn't always finish, which was always McCoy's weakness coming out of Oklahoma. I love the idea of putting those two together, finally getting McCoy, that buddy next to him, to just wreak holy havoc. I think it's awesome to have a team that has that potential from an interior pass rush. Look, edge rushers are great and they're essential. Mm-hmm. But if you have that kind of interior pass rush,
yeah.
When was the last time we saw that? It was probably the Giants when they eliminated New England's perfect season. That's probably the last time we saw a truly elite double interior pass rush was from that team.
Yeah, well, I mean, just one interior pass rusher is
can destroy everything.
That's like gold.
Two guys like that?
Yeah,
that would just be death to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, if you have an interior penetrator 3-tech, with some pass rush ability, that to me is the most valuable, basically, defensive player you can have.
I agree.
So, I mean, that's why, again, Hurst's production is one thing, but his production at that position is a completely different thing altogether that just makes it to the point where, like, how can this guy get out of, top 10, top 15 picks? I don't see it.
Right.
But things will shake out more. But yeah, if you're seeing a mock draft with him not in the first round, that's just crazy talk.
Yeah.
So at number 9, Josh, the Chicago Bears. Last year they took Mitch Trubisky, number 3. Not number 3, number 2, right? They moved up to number 2 to get him. And so they spent a lot of capital, on that pick. So I gotta think, Josh, they're gonna try to protect him this year, and Steve's got them doing that here at Connor Williams from Texas, one of the premier pass protectors and offensive linemen in this draft.
Yeah, it's unfortunate Williams got hurt early on in the season and has been out, but he's spectacular in every facet. He's a perfect left tackle for the next level. A premier athlete. He's nasty. He can just destroy guys. Not the biggest hulking guy, but I think that allows him to be a little more athletic too, and he's certainly not waiting for strength. I think if you gave me 3 non-quarterbacks that let's say I had to pick top 3 overall players, and none of them are quarterbacks, he's one of them.
Yeah, he's definitely up there, and will be a premier draft pick. So at the next pick here at number 10, Steve's got the Cincinnati Bengals taking another tackle.
Yes.
Orlando Brown, very talented player, but man, they just took a couple tackles not too long ago, Josh.
Oh, I should set the scene for you. The people are out in the streets of Cincinnati in celebration. They are celebrating this pick. They love this mock draft pick because they know that despite the investment they made in the offensive line with those 2 young tackles, they just are not performing, and it's to the point where they need to move on. And they're so worried that was not going to happen that they were going to continue to shuffle those guys out there that just have to be replaced. And taking Orlando Brown, he's been the best offensive tackle throughout this year because of Connor Williams being out. But he's been the best offensive tackle in college football this year, really. He's been outstanding for Oklahoma, and I think he's a natural no-brainer pick for Cincinnati here, and a guy they would plug and play immediately and be an immediate upgrade over what they have right now.
I also think it's amazing that Steve's mock draft picks can unite communities in celebration in this manner.
We talked about making America great again. They definitely
stuff.
Made Cincinnati great again.
Yeah, powerful stuff, Steve. Thank you. The next pick here, number 11, the Miami Dolphins taking guard Quentin Nelson from Notre Dame. This is one of the big, premier interior offensive linemen in this class.
Yeah, and offensive guard has been really the single biggest sore spot on that roster for a while. I mean, and they're going to have quarterback. They're going to have to figure out what's going on there. I don't know what's going to happen with Tannehill. But in this stage, especially with 4 quarterbacks already gone, I think Quentin Nelson is an easy pick here because he's going to be a stud in the league. So you take a position of huge weakness and make it a strength. Makes sense to me.
By all means. The next pick, number 12, Green Bay Packers. So taking edge Arden Key from LSU. This is a great pick, man. This is one of the best pass rushers and the best, most athletic, pass rushers in this class. And I got to think for the Packers to grab him at 12, that would be a steal.
That's our first edge guy. First edge guy at 12, which is why this is the worst mock draft ever, because there's no way that could ever happen, Steve. Come on. But no, it's a great pick for them. One interesting thing that we found in our stats today that our Ben Stockwell came out with is that against the top 20 ranked offensive tackles, their superstar Green Bay superstar edge extraordinaire doesn't have a single win this year.
Oh,
not one for Clay Matthews.
That's terrible.
So beyond Clay Matthews, they have some issues too. But if he's at the point where he's not performing there, they really need to look at addressing this position. And I think it's a great pick.
Yeah, gotta love it. You need that twitch on the outside, and this guy's definitely bringing it. The next pick here we have number 13, the Los Angeles Chargers, starting to finally look towards the future. They're getting a quarterback of the future. They got Mason Rudolph from Oklahoma State going there. I have to think they're taking a quarterback some point soon, and then so if they're going that route, this isn't a bad pick.
Yeah, I can't help but think we've replaced Eli, we're replacing Phillip Rivers. What's going to happen when we get to Pittsburgh's pick? Are we replacing Ben too?
Never.
Stay tuned.
But yeah, this is a good pick. Rudolph likes to throw the ball deep, and so that's going to go over well there in Los Angeles. I mean, let's face it, the Chargers need some branding help at this point. So they need to. If they had a nice
6'2" take the long ball, we know that.
Yeah, if they had a nice long ball offense, that would go over well in LA. All right, moving on. The next pick, the Buffalo Bills at number 14, taking wide receiver Calvin Ridley from Alabama. And so now this is, do they still take a Calvin Ridley when they have a Benjamin now?
I actually think he'd be a perfect compliment to him.
Really?
I love this pick even more with Benjamin than there, because Ridley's the guy that can run every route with precision and blow the top off the defense.
Right.
And you can let Benjamin get the hard yards, just throw up the 50-50s to him. I think he's the absolute perfect complement, and this would be an awesome pick. Again, especially with 5 quarterbacks off the board. You're not stretching for number 6 here. I think it makes a ton of sense for Buffalo.
Right, and you are getting a top skill position player. All right, the next pick here, Detroit Lions at number 15. There's no way they'd be picking number 15, Steve. This is the worst mock draft ever. Taking Darius Geis from LSU. So again, this is he's an explosive, productive guy that would look really good in that offense, Josh.
Yeah, looking at that mess of a game against Pittsburgh on Sunday night, and you look at what their running back they had Washington, and all of a sudden that they decided to play over Zenner, over your boy.
I don't know why they always take Zenner out.
I don't know, but they paid for it. They lost the game because of it. There's no other way to put it. And part of the issue is there's Washington. Not only does he just run straight ahead, and there's no vision with him at all because he's an ex-receiver, doesn't know how to run. He doesn't break tackles either. And you look at Dareus Geis, I mean, his elusive rating, I mean, he's forced 52 missed tackles on 192 touches. So, I mean, that's all that guy does. Elusive. Yeah. And when you're playing in the SEC, you better be. You're such a goof nut.
Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, when you're playing behind Detroit's line, let's face it, you better be able to break tackles because they're not that great, even though they've invested some money in it. And I think that pick makes a ton of sense, and it would take a lot of pressure off of Stafford.
Speaking of pressure, the next pick, Carolina Panthers at 16, take one of the premier pressure players in this draft, and that's edge Bradley Chubb from NC State. Josh, he's a guy that we highlighted even before the season. He's been productive for years. I got to think the Panthers would love to add his production to the edge.
38 total pressures this year. That's third most among draft-eligible edge guys. He's been spectacular. I think among 43 defensive ends, he's actually second, which is where he should play. And so this is a perfect fit for Carolina. Carolina loves bigger guys that can defend the run as well, so he fits that because he's a huge guy. I think he's a plug-and-play stud for them. You look at Charles Johnson, when I watch him, I just think he's lost a couple steps. He's just not what he used to be. And so getting a guy like Bradley Chubb that you can just put in right away, I think would be huge for that defense.
Agreed. The next pick is also be huge for this defense. The Washington Redskins at 17 land cornerback Minkah Fitzpatrick from Alabama. And wow, would this be a steal for the Redskins to land a corner, the talent of Fitzpatrick at 17, Josh?
Yeah, and the fact that it's great for Fitzpatrick, too, because he doesn't have to be the guy with Josh Norman there. Bashaw Breeland's contract is up at the end of the year, which Steve points out, and so they're probably likely moving on from them, and that certainly makes that a position that they're going to have to address, even though Kendall Fuller's played pretty well. I think it makes a lot of sense, and we'll see. Maybe Washington does end up getting Cousins back. If that happens, and then they get a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick in there, they've already have a lot of pieces at a lot of other places, but to get a guy like Fitzpatrick that's probably ready to produce now because of where he's from, they're going to be a very interesting team going forward.
This next pick, I don't even know if I can address. It's causing me nightmares already before I even read it. I don't know, I might have to skip it. But okay, in honor of Steve's mock, I'll keep reading this. But again, this is going to cause me night sweats. Pick number 18, the Oakland Raiders select edge Harold Landry from Boston College. And dear God, I can't imagine a pass rusher of this caliber getting to rush on the opposite side of Khalil Mack, Josh.
It's so fun. Oh, put them next to each other. But there's so much you could do. There's so much you could do with these two guys. There's not a guy with better explosiveness, better bend off the edge in this class than Harold Landry. And you're going to have him on the same defense as Khalil Mack? Nope. Yeah, sign me up for that.
Nope.
Sign me up for that.
Nope. Nightmarish. All right, moving on out of that nightmare. Pick number 19, Denver Broncos, tackle Mike McGlinchey, Notre Dame. So, they love Bowles on one side, but then now you can get a nice solid, McGlinchey for the other side. You got some young bookend tackles for whoever their quarterback of the future is. But again, it's still it's a good pick here, adding a player of that caliber.
Yeah, I think it's really, really a solid pick. I could see McGlinchey going significantly higher, too, especially if he tests fairly well. I mean, he's a huge guy that's just a dominant run blocker, and we've certainly seen that with Josh Adams really exploding there at Notre Dame this year. But I think he's a guy that can play either side, so you can keep Bowles at left, put him at right, and he'll be just fine. I think it's a really, really smart pick. And that would be a good job by Denver to rebuild the edges of that offensive line with those back-to-back tackles.
Yeah, because when they finally do figure out who the quarterback is, if he isn't on the roster yet, if he got to come in to have those two tackles there, that'd be a nice little situation. Moving on, the next pick here, we have Tennessee Titans at pick number 20, and they are taking an edge Ogbonnia Okoronkwo from Oklahoma. Josh, you and I fully expect the Titans to take an edge rusher early in this draft because they haven't really spent much capital on it over the past couple of years. And, in that scheme, I got to think that Okoronkwo is a great fit.
Yeah, I think there are two really, really good fits for them and this top tier of edge rushers. and one of them just went off the board.
Yeah, Landry would have been great.
Landry would have been great for them. But Okoronkwo, I love him too. And he does a lot of different things, and he has a diverse skill set in terms of his moves on the pass rush. I think it's a really, really solid pick for them, and a team that they're taking some lumps for a variety of reasons now, but still I like the general makeup and direction of this team, and getting a young edge rusher with a diverse skill set like Okoronkwo's. I think that would be a big deal for them.
And Okoronkwo is a player that you and I spoke about. Sort of has the build and ability to also play like an inside off the ball backer. So he's going to bring a lot of versatility, to LeBeau. And the star, and as we know, the star in LeBeau's defense is the backers. So when you got a backer like this who can rush and who could also play in the middle, I mean, that's a great piece for LeBeau. That's a great fit there on that pick.
Mm-hmm. Good job, Steve.
Good job, Steve. Don't tell Steve. All right, the next pick, number 21, Jacksonville Jaguars get wide receiver Michael Gallup from Colorado State. He is a PFF favorite, Mr. Gallup, and he is also, as Josh phrased earlier, a grown-ass man. He is a guy who can basically power through people or run by them, and he's a fun player to watch, and this is a great addition for the Jags.
But they have so many wide receivers. They can't possibly take a wide receiver. How can they do that? That's the worst mock ever.
Well, we do know it's a terrible mock, but yeah, Gallup has been really ridiculous this year. He's got the highest grade out of any receiver in the nation for us right now, 93.9 overall. Again, Josh, he just shows that physicality and speed, so he would be a great fit for the Jags.
Yeah, and when I think about him, when I watch him, I see a guy that is the guy that can go get it. He can go get that 50-50 ball. He can outplay guys in the air. He's also forced 18 missed tackles this year. That's number 2 among draft-eligible wide receivers. So he's elusive after the catch, too.
Yep.
This guy does everything. So I don't think you can argue with that at this point. They need impact guys on offense, regardless of position. And Gallup would be a great find for them at pick 21.
At pick 22, the Cleveland Browns from Houston Texans select quarterback Isaiah Oliver from Colorado. He's also a PFF favorite. He was our candidate to be the breakout corner of the year this year. He's played tremendously. Again, size, speed. This is a great fit there for Cleveland.
Yeah, and I think it's those measurables that make him – I guess we did have Minka up there, so make him a number 2 guy at the position. But I think that makes a lot of sense to have him in this range. I think that's kind of the right fit for him. And Browns just need players everywhere. So I think at this point, if you're getting the number 2 player in the draft at his position, at an impact position like corner, I think you're doing well at number 22.
Number 23, the Los Angeles Rams select another PFF favorite and inspiration for metal band names everywhere, and that's center Frank Ragnow from Arkansas. Yeah. Man, that would be great for Goff.
Yes.
And for Gurley, for that matter.
All the above. All the above. I think the Rams are just taking off. I think they're really constructing their roster well. They've got some young guys that are already making plays. And then you solidify. This is kind of the gel that brings everything together in that offense, getting a top-end center like Frank Ragnow. I mean, we saw it in Atlanta, to be honest. Now, obviously, Atlanta has Matt Ryan, a seasoned quarterback. But they had a lot of young pieces and, couldn't quite put it together. But then they went and got Alex Mack. Well, I think this is the next Alex Mack. I really think that highly of Frank Ragnow. So great pick for LA. Very lucky to see him still on the board there, even though it's the center position. If he's still on the board at 23, that's an easy decision, in my opinion.
Speaking of Atlanta, they're on the board at 24 here, and they take a corner from your part of the world, Joshua Jackson from Iowa. He's been getting it done this year.
52.9 passer rating on throws into his coverage. That's the second lowest among draft-eligible Big Ten corners. He's been solid. He had 4 pass breakups this past week, which is the second time he's done that in a game this year. His build is kind of like Kevin Johnson in Houston, where he's got the length you love. He's about 6'1", but he's pretty wiry. He's probably right at 190 or maybe just under. But he's got the length, and more importantly, that you want. So it's a little bit different than Desmond King last year, who's a little bit stockier build. What was he, around 5'10" or so? So I think he's going to have that working to his advantage, and his instincts and ball skills are outstanding. He leads the country in total passes defended. So I think that makes a lot of sense for Atlanta, a team that needs a number 2 corner.
All right, at pick number 25, we have the New Orleans Saints taking linebacker Rashad Evans from Alabama, and Rashad Evans would be, I know they like Alex Anzalone, but he's always got sort of, injury issues or seems to be nicked up. I mean, last time I saw him, I think he had some sort of brace or something on his arm. So again, like, not to take anything away from him, but you bring in a young, talented backer like Evans, that's got to help out that D.
Yeah, if you look at ways to help this D going forward, they suddenly have a lot of pieces. Obviously, the cornerback situation there is spectacular now, where that's been such a problem for them. They have one of the best young corners in the league now with their first-round pick from last year, Marshon Lattimore. Rashad Evans, I mean, that's the position where they're lacking at right now. They're not getting production from the linebacking core. And Rashad Evans, instant plug-and-play guy. This is a real contender now because Breeze is still playing at a high level. They're still putting up a lot of points on offense. They're very diverse, getting a run game. Obviously, they have the passing game. The defense is playing much better, but they get that guy in the middle of the field like a Rashad Evans. I think this is kind of that last piece that really makes them a true contender. I really like this pick.
Staying on the defensive side of the ball here at pick number 26, the Dallas Cowboys select Vita Vea, the defensive interior lineman from Washington. And when you look at, how the Cowboys spent their picks last year, I mean, they took the pressure player Taco Charlton early, and then they took the cover players and, the Jordan Lewis and Chidobe Awuzie. And so you think they got to maybe add some beef in the middle. So I think this is a good pick here.
I think it would be a stunning pick. To me, Vita Vea has to be a top 20 pick. And this is probably an instance where them being 5 quarterbacks drops him down because someone's got to fall. And for some reason, it's Vita Vea in this mock. Again, Steve's an idiot, but
totally,
you got to love this for Dallas. I mean, this could not be a better pick for the Cowboys here. I think he's Haloti Ngata reincarnate. I think he's going to be a spectacular player at the next level.
Yeah, and he's not just a run stopper either. I mean, he's a guy who can go in there and generate some interior pass rush too. At 340.
Well, especially too, when you think about the edge guys that they have now, because they have 2 pretty awesome edge guys when they're both in there. And then you put in a guy like Vita Vea, who does not let you step in because he's bowling his guy over consistently every single snap. He's collapsing the interior. That's just going to be a big, big problem for opposing quarterbacks.
All right, sticking with the theme of the big uglies here. Apologies, Mr. Hernandez. The Minnesota Vikings at number 27 select Will Hernandez, the guard from UTEP. Just a physically dominant guy who basically, again, to me, just sort of looks like a rhinoceros out there, running over people, mauling people, goring people with his horn. And he's also solid in pass pro, Josh.
You remember Deep Thoughts with Jack Handy?
Yes, sir.
Saturday Night Live. My favorite one of his was the most dangerous creature in the world would be an elephant with a shark on its back, trampling and eating everything in its path. That's Will Hernandez, right? He's just trampling and eating everything in his path.
He's fun to watch.
And now you've got Cook. I mean, let's assume Cook comes back and is every bit what he was, and you get a guy like Will Hernandez for him to run behind. Oh, that's terrifying. That's awesome. I love it.
That would be a great pick for them. Pick number 28 here, Buffalo Bills from Kansas City Chiefs. We have Steve has them taking edge Marcus Davenport from UTSA, player a lot of people might not know about. We know about him because we watch every play. But again, Davenport, long arms, athletic, really cause havoc on the edge. This has got to be a great pick for the Bills because, Josh, this sort of length and production doesn't come around that often.
No, yeah, I love having the small school guy in here. I'll be honest, if I'm Buffalo, as much as I think Marcus Davenport is an excellent player and is going to be an excellent player at the NFL, if they're that close, they got to find a way to go get Vita Bay after that trade yesterday. But that being said, I mean, Davenport is an awesome player, and I think he's going to translate very well. Second highest pass rush productivity among all FBS edge defenders. You look on a per snap basis, 6'7", 255. That's an NFL guy, an NFL body. I think he's going to be excellent in every facet of that defense.
Okay, moving on to the next pick is the 29th pick, the Seattle Seahawks. Steve has them taking wide receiver Cortland Sutton from SMU. So, again, a big target, with some ball skills there for Russell Wilson. He's never really had, he's had like some decent receivers there, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, you haven't really had a guy, like a premier guy that he can sort of like grow with and form a sustainable tandem with, and you have to think that would happen here with Sutton.
Yeah, and I also think with his playing style, where he's creating so much on the scramble.
Chaos, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, with pure chaos, I think it would benefit him so much to have the guy that he can just throw that up to and to go get. And I think Cortland Sutton is that guy. Now, obviously, Jimmy Graham can be that to an extent. He's been kind of hot and cold at times, but I think having that other receiver like that with that 6'4" frame of Cortland Sutton, he's going to, with that scrambling ability, with his ability to extend plays, he's going to get one-on-one matchups with a huge guy like Cortland Sutton, and I think that's going to play very well for him.
No doubt. Yeah, Russell is, again, probably one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch. I love what he can do, but he's easily my least favorite.
Just don't ask me to grade him.
He's my least favorite quarterback to grade.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And I try to explain this to people sometimes. I'm like, listen, if a pass play, because people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, listen, if a pass play, let's just say a Tom Brady pass play, it's over in like 2.4 seconds, and the ball gets out and it's clean and it's already to a receiver. Yeah. Well, there's not that much for us to grade, but with Russell, it's like he invites the pressure almost, like he stands back there and waits for it, and then all of a sudden we have all these other interactions that are grade worthy, and all of a sudden like a play that would have taken you, not nearly as long to grade, it becomes exponentially longer. And yeah, I can't stand grading Russell Wilson. But
not to mention just the timing aspect of it, because you think the play's over, he's about to throw, he pumps and pulls it. Now you got to start it all over again. Yeah, because we're calculating the timing on every play. It's just
started scrambling right, then went scrambling
left. It's a mess.
Oh, it's terrible. You're the worst, Russell Wilson, and the best. Speaking of the best, moving on to the next pick here, the pick 30, the Pittsburgh Steelers select tight end Dallas Goedert of South Dakota State. Am I allowed to talk about Dallas Goedert?
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, he is the greatest tight end in all the land, but we don't get to see him too much because he doesn't, play FBS, but again, just tremendous mismatch weapon, and I got to think he's going to be going somewhere in this range, maybe possibly also in the beginning of round 2, but just a tremendous mismatch player and, size, speed sort of weapon there that could be used by the Steelers. I think it'd be a great pick there.
And I think it's pretty clear at this point that Steelers need to find secondary receiving options. They've got Antonio Brown and no one, whether it be tight end, wide receiver. They don't have. Obviously they use Le'Veon Bell a number of ways, but still, even though he's a threat as a receiver, he's not a guy who's just getting downfield on wheels. They need that other option there.
Goddard would be in the way that you mentioned Sutton as a good sort of, agent of chaos partner there for Russell Wilson. Same thing with Big Ben, right? Big Ben loves the chaos too. And then if you can just throw the ball up to Dallas Goedert, who could jump 10 feet and then just pluck the ball down with one finger, it makes things easier.
Yeah. Ben also terrible to grade because of his pump fakes. Fools me every single time. I hate that. Every single time I'm restarting it.
Yep. He's bad too.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to pick number 31 here. The Philadelphia Eagles select tackle Tyrell Crosby from Oregon. Been grading a lot of Crosby's games this year, Josh. He's been.
Yeah, you tell me about him because I haven't seen him.
He's been doing really well. Like, it really sort of stood out to me at first. At some of his plays that he was making in the run game. Oregon really likes to get out there on some of these runs, and so he was, moving around, being athletic. and getting the job done there. And then as far as, pass protection, he's been really good in that aspect too, Josh. 87.5 overall grade right now, ranks 9th in the nation. And then he's top 15 in both pass blocking and run blocking. So you got to think that, you never can go wrong by adding a nice, athletic tackle.
Yeah. And Philly's running out of positions to need, but clearly there's a limited shelf life at left tackle if he is able to come back, because obviously they just lost their longtime standout for the season, and with him being 35, who knows what his future is going to be. But yeah, so this makes perfect sense for them.
All right, and then the rounding out the draft here. I wonder why Steve put the Patriots as winning the Super Bowl.
He thinks the Patriots are going to win the Super Bowl.
This is the worst mock draft ever. They just traded away Garoppolo. There's no way they win the Super Bowl.
When this got posted, that was legit like one of the first comments on Twitter about it. Like, how I can't believe he would have New England win the Super Bowl.
Steve's the worst. So cornerback Denzel Ward from Ohio State, again, for New England at 32, and they probably have picked 33 too. So who knows if they'll be sitting here? But again, for them to, if they are still sitting there, for them to get a cornerback of this size and this production would be a steal.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how this plays out going forward for them. This is like the story on that roster to me. Obviously, they need to figure out quarterback beyond Brady now. But they've had real issues at corner with all those guys. That was supposed to be suddenly the strength of their team after their free agent pickup. But both those guys have had significant struggles at different points in the season already. And they're able to get away with it because of the rest of the roster, but that's a real issue. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see them just say, you know what, we need to get a young stud. Ohio State puts him out every single year. Let's get Denzel Ward. Would make sense.
All right, that wraps up the first round in Steve Palazzolo's first mock draft of this year. It was historically the worst mock draft of all time, but he did manage to get lucky with a lot of good picks.
Now let's start rounds 2 through 7, which I just wrote out on the back of my hand.
Yes, we're going to take you through the rest of a couple hundred more picks, and I'm going to read like this. Number 13, the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to read like that the whole way down that list off of your hand. So I probably won't even be able to read what it says, but
you probably won't.
Yeah, this podcast is awesome. All right. Actually, Josh, let's not do that. Let's just go ahead and go. Is anything you want to say on the way out here? I'm excited that we got mock drafts going now.
No, I'm sick of you, freak. Let's leave. I'm done.
That's it. Bye.